And welcome back to Focal Point, AFR Talk, free for all Friday on Thursday, 888-589-8840. Brian Fisher is my name. The program is Focal Point. Glad to have you call in. Let's grab a call to start this segment. Let's go to Shannon. Shannon called and has been waiting patiently. Shannon, thanks for waiting. What's on your mind?
Hey, man, you're welcome. That's a short 45 minutes when you're listening to Brian Fisher.
Well, I'm glad to hear that.
Hey, brother, listen, I've got a couple things I just want to share real quick. As far as those people banning war ball, they're nuts. If they just get out there and try it with the kids, they'd be going, hey, this is a blast. There ain't no way we're banning this. Okay?
Well, you know, and it's crazy because you got the sixth grade girl. I mean, you'd think if anybody would be squeamish about dodgeball, it would be a girl. And she says it's fun. The dodgeballs are soft. They don't hurt. It's a kick in the pants. So.
Yeah. Hey, I had something else that's a little bit more serious. You know, I listen to your guys' radio station day in and day out. I mean, 24/7, and I just love it. Right? You're one of my favorite shows on there.
Thank you.
One thing that I really have to fight in my mind and in my spirit, you know, is you always hear this same-sex marriage. You always hear same-sex, you know, it's same-sex marriage this and homosexual marriage this, you know. And, you know, that is a trick from the devil. That is a trick from Satan to get that thought in our heads, because you know what? It's like saying this is fake money. This is non-poisonous cyanide. There's no such thing as same-sex marriage. And, you know, there are times that I do hear you guys call it, you know, so-called same-sex marriage, you know, and yes, that is what they call it. It is a battle. They are trying. I mean, it's just like the whole thing with the rifles that you talked about. You know, this is a sporting rifle. And, you know, so as my brother in Christ, man, I really challenge you guys, you know, just as a radio station, because we support you and we love you. But I challenge you guys to try to find another way to address that, because it isn't marriage.
Mm-hmm.
And
well, that's and that's a good observation. And I'll tell you, you know, you sometimes you just use terminology just for kind of the sake of variety. But I know that I frequently, especially when I write, I refer to it as sodomy-based marriage. It's marriage that's based on the act of sodomy. And I choose that term very deliberately. It's a good word. It's a dictionary word. It's a word that has a meaning. It's a word that Antonin Scalia has used frequently in talking about this issue. But it's an ugly word. Yeah. And we're talking about an ugly thing. And so it's an ugly word. And again, you know, words have meanings. If you sort of set the parameters for the terms and the discussion, a lot of times you can control the outcome of the debate. So I frequently use sodomy-based marriage. I'll refer to it as marriage that's based on the infamous crime against nature. You're exactly right. It's not marriage. And that's why another term that we use frequently around here is natural marriage. That natural marriage is the marriage of one man and one woman. It's according to the laws of nature and nature's God. Anything else is unnatural, and it's counterfeit. I'll use the word counterfeit quite a bit to refer, because they're counterfeit marriages. Like you say, they're not real marriages. It's not the real thing. It cannot be. We know what marriage is. One man and one woman. Well, listen, Shannon, I appreciate the call. And, you know, Shannon making a good point that language and terminology, vocabulary, very, very important in these conversations. Now, let's grab clip number 4 if we can, Rob. This is another Republican who's gone completely off the reservation. Larry Pressler is a former senator from South Dakota. And he has gone over to the dark side. He's on Current TV talking to John Fugelsang. And here's what he had to say about gay marriage. Listen to the way he's got his head wrapped around the axle on this one.
I have found and have encountered in particular one gay couple who are veterans who want to get married, but in their state they can't. And they would also like to have a family someday. And it's something like in World War II, we had the African-American veterans who fought, but when they got home, they couldn't vote. So nowadays, we have gays in the military. Of course, we had gays in the military before, but now we have openly gay people in the military. When they come out, we tell them that they are not entitled to this civil right. And so the thing that triggered me was working with some of these folks who are struggling to get back on their feet, homeless veterans and others who happen to be gay, who want to get married and have a family. So actually in our brief, we argued that this is the new conservative position, that marriage is a conservative institution and adoption of children is a conservative institution in a sense.
In a sense. You notice he adds that qualification to call sodomy-based marriage a conservative institution, obviously, is changing the meaning of language, stretching it all out of proportion. You know, it's interesting. You listen to what he's basing his support for same-sex marriage on. He's basing it on his interaction with one gay couple that he liked, and they wanted to have a family. Well, that's a biological impossibility in the homosexual community. You cannot procreate. You cannot conceive children. It is a biological impossibility. When you have a heterosexual married couple and they want to have kids and they can't, that's a tragedy. But homosexual couples, it's a biological impossibility for them to conceive children. And he also makes the other thing he's basing it on is these homeless people that are struggling with post-traumatic stress syndrome. So you think this is what he's basing his view of public policy on? His interactions with homeless people and with one gay couple that would like to have a family someday, and he is going to overturn 5,000 years of human history based on homeless people that are suffering from post-traumatic stress syndrome? I mean, it boggles the mind, the stupidity that's involved in thinking that that's a solid basis on which to change the fundamental institution of civilization. And you notice that this Pressler also falls for that parallel. It's completely bogus parallel between homosexuality and race. There is no, even Colin Powell said it's a convenient parallel, but it is invalid. It's not a valid comparison because people are born black. They are not born gay. They're not born that way. And geneticists, you don't have to rely on me for this, geneticists will tell you, we know now that people are not born gay. And we know that, they will tell you, geneticists will tell you, we know that people are not born gay because we have studied identical twins. And if gayness was genetically determined, if you were in fact born that way, then geneticists know that the concordance rate should be 100%. If one twin is homosexual, then the identical twin will be homosexual 100% of the time if it is genetically determined. If one of them has blue eyes, they both have blue eyes. One of them has blonde hair, they both have blonde hair. One of them is short, they're both short. One of them is tall, they're both tall. I mean, that's the way identical twins work. But they discovered that the concordance rate is less than 7%. I think it's somewhere between 5 and 6% for women and 6 and 7% for identical male twins. So the concordance rate is down in the single digits. So geneticists will tell you that is proof. That's absolute proof that people are not born this way. Now, people are born black. They are not born homosexual. And yet you've got people, and again, so you've got people basing their public policy on absolute, utter biological, medical, and genetic ignorance. They are ignorant about genetics when it comes to homosexuality, and yet they are basing public policy on that. You even had one of the lawyers arguing before the Supreme Court yesterday that it became constitutional, same-sex marriage became constitutional when we understand that people have no control over their sexual orientation. So he built the whole thing on this genetic argument that people are born this way. It is a fallacious argument. It represents scientific, biological, and genetic ignorance. And yet the Supreme Court, based on that ignorance, perpetuated by one of the lawyers arguing at the Supreme Court, they allow people to get away with this kind of swill. It is ignorance. And yet it's being allowed to be presented at the Supreme Court in a way that's completely unchallenged. And Anthony Kennedy, this one tyrant could wind up imposing marriage policy on all 50 states based on scientific, medical, and biological ignorance. Now, you know it's ignorant because you listen to this program. If you were to sit there in the Supreme Court, you would not know that that was utter, absolute bilge from a scientific standpoint. Well, let's grab a couple of phone calls. Let's go to Dwayne in Texas. Dwayne, you're on Focal Point with Brian Fisher. What's on your mind?
Brian, how are you, man?
I'm good. Dwayne, how are you doing?
Great. Listen, hold on. Just say, I think I got you on speakerphone. I'm sorry. It might mess up the radio here. Hold on.
Okay, good. Take a quick second. All right, there you go.
Listen, I over the past 11 years, since about 2002, I've been studying biblical prophecy, right along up there with big government, all of those things that become to invade on our very human rights. And what you've got to understand, and a lot of people fail to understand, they believe everything that the establishment has built up in front of them. It's sort of like taken into view. You take things for what you see them as. A lot of this, and especially with this gay marriage issue or homosexual marriage issue, what's going on is this. This is not about anything about the gay issue or the gay marriage issue. What this is about is a takeover of states' rights. It is basically set up as a ploy by federal government to come in and take over every form of our life, including political, education, religion, all of those things that are been built by the establishment. That's what this is basically about. And people do not see it for that. They are so blind. You know, even in the Bible, when God says, you know, for my people shall perish for their lack of what? Knowledge. Correct?
Right, correct.
Those are the things that are happening right now. And you will have people that, it even says it as well, that they will willfully refuse that knowledge. Folks, this is not a game. It's a game to them.
Well, and I agree, and I think you make a good observation, Dwayne, that ultimately what this is about power. It's about secular fundamentalists. It's about homosexual activists who want to use the force and the power of government to impose their morality on us. These are the people that are always telling us you can't impose morality. It's wrong to impose morality. You can't legislate morality. What do they want to do? They believe that this is fair, it's right, and equal, and they're going to impose it on us whether we like it or not. Focal Point AFR Talk.